For the child's version of this argyle vest, I chose to duplicate stitch the cross hatching, and you can see that it gives it a slightly embossed appearance. It stands out a bit more than cross hatching that's knit in. For a child sweater, I think this is kind of cute, just an additional detail. I didn't do it for the adult sweaters. Now, I've already duplicate stitched that one, but since I did two, I have this one. And again, I would recommend weaving in your yarn tails first. It's just going to make this easier. You're not fighting as many tails. And I happen to have this pattern memorized, and I know that I'm going to be starting from where this diamond is right to the first row where it is. It's right there. And I'm going to insert my needle in the bottom of the stitch that I want to cover. And when you duplicate stitch, you exactly duplicate the stitch below. So that means that if it's a twisted stitch, it would be a twisted duplicate stitch. If it's not a twisted stitch, you wouldn't twist it duplicate. And to avoid twisted stitches, if my diagonal line is going to go this way, that means I am always going to be inserting in the stitch above from right to left. And if I were going from the other direction, it would be from left to right. And I'm going to pull that yarn through, and I'm going to insert it in the same place where I came up. And I'm going to neaten it up a bit, and there's my first duplicate stitch. Now I'm making diagonal lines, so I know that I'm going to be going up a row and over a column, and that's going to be true for all of these. And I want to make sure I don't get my yarn tail caught up in this. I'm going to be weaving it in later. Up from right to left, and then into the same spot. Now the reason why I'm going from right to left is so that I don't twist the stitch. And I'm going to do one wrong so that you can see, and then I'm going to take it undone. I'm going to go in this direction, okay, but I'm going to go from left to right. And notice that when I go down under here, I am crossing the stitch. And if you do this, you see that it's a twisted stitch. These are not twisted stitches. And as I said before, when you're doing duplicate stitch, you want to exactly duplicate the stitch on top. So if I am going diagonally from right to left, I want to be inserting my needle from right to left, and that's going to guarantee that I don't twist the stitches. Now if I were doing diagonals from this way to that way, then I would go from left to right. And when I pulled that, made it kind of icky. And the other thing is that when you're doing this, you're going to want to look at your stitches and see that they're working out okay. And I'm going to take a second to rethread this needle. And duplicate stitch isn't hard. It really isn't. The only thing you can really do wrong is put it in the wrong spot or twist the stitch. And I'm taking care not to do that. So I'm going to do a couple more and then we'll call it quits. And it is easier to do this duplicate stitch before the thing is seamed, obviously. Here we go. And you can get in a rhythm. Now some people like duplicate stitching, other people don't. I embroidered before I knit, and so I don't mind duplicate stitch at all. Again, it does give a slightly embossed appearance because it is sitting on top of the stitches, and that just is going to be, if you like that look, fine. If you don't like that look, then knit them in. It just means that you're going to have some additional balls hanging. And if you look at the videos for the Shades of Grey vest, the adult version of this, you will see that I knit those lines in because I didn't want embossed cross-hatching on the adult sizes. And you can see that that just is going to increase your yarn management, but it doesn't add any any additional doing this doesn't add any additional yarn tails to weave in, and actually it increases fewer, because if I were doing this, knitting them in, I'd have a yarn ball for this, I'd have a yarn ball going in this direction, and those are additional ends that I have to weave in.